Okay, thanks for plugging into this short video. This is all about pre-approval and pre-qualification when it comes to the VA loan. So we've got Rick Ward here, fellow Army veteran, mortgage loan officer for going on 10 years now?
Yeah, just over 10. Yeah.
Just over 10 years now. And here to just talk through what those terms mean, what some companies do and some companies don't, and some misconceptions so people understand the differences in these terms: pre-approval, pre-qualification, what they mean, what's required, and what you should be watching out for as a buyer with the VA loan. So yeah, Rick, I'll turn it over to you. What is the deal with this whole pre-approval, pre-qualification? What do people need to know about both of these terms?
Sure. So thanks again for let me do this with you. I'm looking forward to the series here. But I would just say many folks who are first-time home buyers know that they probably need to go out, or they get lured in down a path to clicking on something on the internet that they need to get pre-qualified for a home purchase. And there's a big difference between being pre-qualified and pre-approval. And so what most companies will do is they will pull your credit when you do an application. And literally, it's an online application where you put in some personal information. They're going to pull your credit. And if you are over the minimum credit scores that they require to do to do a loan, they will send a pre-qualification letter based on the stated facts or information that you've put in your application, which may not necessarily be accurate because you don't know what you don't know, or you had a typo when you put in some income numbers or that sort of thing. And they will send out a pre-qualification letter, and many newcomers or first-time homebuyers will feel like, hey, I'm approved. I can go buy a house, when in all actuality, that's the furthest from the truth, because with the VA home loan, you definitely want to get a pre-approval, really with any home loan. But let me tell you what that entails to get a full pre-approval. It starts with checking your eligibility. The lender actually needs to go out to the VA's lender portal and pull over what's called a certificate of eligibility. It is the only thing that says, hey, I got this in my hand, my certificate of eligibility. I got the golden ticket that I'm eligible to go out and see if I qualify for a VA home loan. And you usually will earn that through your service and time in service, in the military. So that's the first step. The second piece is, yes, you would complete an application, but then you need to provide supporting financial documentation. And the main things that are needed on a VA home loan are a copy, if you're active duty, a copy of your LES. And if you're not active duty, a veteran, then you'll need a copy of your pay stubs. We'll also need something, the most recent 30 days worth of bank statements, because that's going to show where your money's coming from to put into the deal for any types of closing costs that may be coming up, or reserve requirements to get an approval. And then the last thing that we typically need, the main thing, is an ID. We don't want your military ID. We want a driver's license or a passport, right? And so those are the three basic things that we are needed to get a full pre-approval, at least in process. And so that's kind of the paperwork required, the application. We will run your application through something that's called an automated underwriting system. And all that really is it's almost like a desktop software tool that connects back to the East Coast, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, Ginnie Mae, that says, hey, yes, based on everything that's in this application, we have an approvable loan on paper. The next step is, when you provide that documentation, we'll have you sign a document called what's borrower's authorization form. And all that is certifying that you allow us to do a verification of employment to make sure that income is correct. Verify some assets, that sort of thing, a couple of little checks and balances that we do. And then a physical underwriter touches your file, reviews your credit, reviews the income that you've provided, reviews your assets that you provided, and then says, yep, we have an approvable loan. And so that gives you the power, when you're out working with a realtor like Jason, to go out there, and when you submit an offer, that offer's ironclad. We've done everything we can in our part in the process to make sure you're not going to have any surprises during that process of trying to purchase that home. So those are the big differences between pre-qualification and a pre-approval. if you have a lender that hasn't done those things, and it just doesn't sound like you've been through that process, you're probably not pre-approved. And you're going to want to, work with someone that actually goes through all those steps to give you all the confidence you need to go out and shop in the market to find the home that you're looking for.
And so real quick, so on that, because I'm sure you've seen some horror stories with this, so just to give people kind of an understanding of why this is so important. I've seen it where people will go online or one of these apps or one of these simple websites or something like that, where it's like, oh, get, pre-qualified now. And kind of like what you said, they'll just do a quick little credit score check and they'll say, oh yeah, you're pre-qualified for a mortgage. And then they'll go home shopping and put in an offer, maybe get that accepted, go through, pay for an inspection, maybe even pay for an appraisal or something like that. And then what happens? So when I've seen that, where when they actually take a look at things and they go through the pre-approval process, they see, oh, well, actually part of this income is commission based and it can't be used, or, oh, this income can't be fully used because it's not completely verifiable, or it hasn't been a certain amount of time. And then they could completely lose the deal. So could you just maybe what have you seen in that regard? Why this is so important for people to make sure that they are going through this process appropriately in the front end, so that they're not, going through one of these horror stories of thinking they're getting this home. And then
that's great. I mean, I let's touch just on eligibility first. I've seen people that have served that felt like that maybe they had earned that VA home loan benefit that really don't have it because they didn't have enough time in service, or because of the character of a discharge that they received, or they were a reservist and they need that 6 years with 16 points every year, unless they were called up on active duty to get VA eligibility, et cetera, et cetera. I see people that maybe are divorced and they felt like a spouse felt they had eligibility, or a child from a deceased parent thought they had eligibility, and someone told them they did, and they really don't. So eligibility is a big one that we see and we run into often, because folks didn't take the time to actually pull the certificate of eligibility. I see that all the time. Income, you just touched on it. That's a big one. I'm no longer active duty. I'm working in the civilian world now. Part of my pay is commission, and I've only been in a commission job for 6 months. But I need that commission pay in order to qualify for the amount of home purchase price that maybe I'm looking for. And there's rules around that on about how long you have to be in a commission job to actually use that commission portion of your pay for qualifying income. We see folks that are misinformed that they don't have to pay any closing costs on a VA home loan. I see that one quite often, and that's just, and the reality is in this current market, it's just not the case. You're going to have some skin in the game. The beauty is the VA home loan has no down payment requirement, right? Most of the time, if you have full eligibility, but that doesn't translate into not having closing costs. So I see that one all the time, and a lender didn't take the time to go through that with the family to make sure they understood what a payment might look like, what an estimated purchase price might look like, and what they're expected for bring to cash to the closing table, to close on a home. So those are things we see all the time, horror stories, that just someone didn't do their homework and did a family, and especially a military family, a disservice when they went out and got under contract, spent money on a home inspection, or prepaid for an appraisal, and now they're waiting to get funds back because the deal fell apart because there was something that lender didn't go through all the steps required to make sure that those things don't happen to a family. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, that's great. So I think, biggest takeaway, there's a big difference between a pre-approval process and just a run-of-the-mill pre-qualification process. And it's important to take the time, because I hear it a lot where people are like, well, yeah, I didn't want to, that lender required all these documents and this other one, didn't. So it's like, I didn't want to fish out all these documents, but that could put you in a serious bind. So I think, biggest takeaway is, again, veteran PCS, one of the reasons why, it was created was just military families, helping military families move, or it's people like yourself that know all this stuff, can actually talk to a person or a family on the phone and say, hey, this is really what it's going to take. let's take a look at things. And before we get too far down the road, before you start spending money on any sort of houses for a ton of time, let's see, is this even possible, or what do you need to do in order to make it possible, so that when they do it, they're good to go, they have a good experience, they're actually able to close a loan, instead of having this house that they think they're moving into, and then turns out they can't actually qualify for.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and I'll give you one other example, Jason, that you touched on, that I think, it's critical they work with someone in this network when they're looking to shop for a home, is because sometimes someone, just because they have the capability in their company to do a VA home loan, or a realtor that maybe helped a veteran or active duty military family 2 or 3 years ago and go get into a home, doesn't mean that they're up to speed with all the current changes and the stressors that go on in that type of a move. For instance, when we catch a family before they move from overseas and are coming back stateside, before they pack up all their household goods and some important papers that they might need to have access to in the pre-approval process, you're going to want to have a conversation with someone that this is what we specialize in, and not pack those papers away. And now all of a sudden you don't have access to the documents you need to get an approval. And now what do you do? So that's just another example of working with veterans in this group, because everyone in the group is a veteran that understands the process, kind of specializes in working with military families and veteran families, because you just don't want those curveballs, thrown your way.
right. So yeah, veteranpcs.com. You can find Rick if you have other questions, or if you want to talk through this process or anything like that. You're licensed in how many states?
45, pretty much most states.
Right. So no matter where someone's going, they can click to get in touch with you, either in the show notes here, or they can just go onto veteranpcs.com. They can find you on the Colorado page, Florida page, or just reach out to us directly. We'll get you in contact with Rick, and you can talk through this stuff and talk through this home buying process to make sure that people do it right.
Awesome.
Okay. Thanks, Rick.
Thanks.